Hurricane Nation, baby, it's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog, or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man saw Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randolph. Season here, Philly time to do them in. Your boy Philly Fresco, thanks for tuning in.
But what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and this is Philly the podcast. So today we have a very, very special guest. As you guys can tell, we do have Zach Berman from The Athletic. Zach, nice to have you back on again, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. So we'll hop right into it, man. I know it's a busy week for you. So the Eagles just had their first open practice, obviously having, the fans back in the stands a little bit. Just what was the energy out there? How did it feel to finally see, people doing the wave in the stands again during practice?
Well, I was focused more on what was happening on the field, right? But it's always good when you're in the stadium, when there are fans there. Even when they had fans on a limited basis last year, it didn't feel normal. It started to feel more normal again, and that was good. But I would be lying to you if I said I was focused on the wave and whatever was happening in the stands. I was focused more on what Jalen Hurts and Quez Watkins were doing.
Definitely. So not only were the fans back in the stands, but we did get some players back on the field. So we had Brandon Brooks back. He was limited. Just what did you see from Brandon Brooks? How did he look? Did he look healthy, ready to go?
Honestly, it's really hard for me to give that type of assessment off of practice yesterday. He didn't participate in team drills. It was progress that he was out there, but I would be lying if I told you that I was able to give a good evaluation of Brandon Brooks based on what he did in Sunday's practice. That said, it's certainly a positive that he was out there, right? The key with Brandon Brooks is for him to be healthy and to him to be back to what he was when Eagles fans last saw him. If that's the case, the offensive line is going to be much better than obviously they were last year, and the offense could be better than people think because it all starts up front. So with Brandon Brooks, it's not necessarily how he's playing; it's more whether he's healthy.
Definitely. Now, last time we had you on, it was a different scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles. We were in the hunt for a head coach. Now that you've had, about a week and a half or so, maybe 2 weeks now, of being able to see Nick Sirianni out there and everything, do you feel he was the right choice, with the energy that he brings and how he coaches?
Well, the right choice, that will come over time, right? That I couldn't tell you that he's the right coach for the Eagles based off of 2 weeks of practice. I mean, I've enjoyed the interactions I've had with Nick, getting to know Nick, talking to people around Nick. He does bring energy. He does bring acumen. But as far as whether he's the right choice to be the head coach of the Eagles, and especially relative to who else was out there, that will be determined by how he does, on Sundays, right?
Definitely.
So he hasn't coached the game yet, and we'll see. But he is putting his imprint on this team. He is doing it his way. And time will tell whether that's the right way.
Definitely. Now, to keep on Sirianni a little bit, we have been seeing these practices. Obviously, yesterday was the first open one, but the closed practices have been going kind of quick. Yesterday, we saw it, finally be a 2 hour. I don't want to say finally, but it was a 2 hour practice. Do you think moving forward, these practices time-wise will kind of rev up, or do you think that Nick Sirianni is kind of the guy that just gets it done and gets out of there?
No, I think 2 weeks is enough of a sample size, and really after the preseason game, they have 2 weeks of joint practices, and then they're getting ready for week one. So the training camp mode's almost over, right? So I think what we've seen is how he operates training camp. Now, I'm not a football coach. I've been around a lot of football coaches, but I think just because something's done one way doesn't mean that's the way it must be done. You don't need to have 3 hour practices. You just need to practice to get better for the regular season. And we'll see when they get out there. Are they rusty? Are they healthy? There are different components to this that Nick Sirianni is considering. I don't think it's bad that they're practicing for an hour and a half, right? And I think, frankly, one of the most overrated things in football, and I say this obviously having never been a player in the NFL, but from the outside looking in, one of the more overrated things is like the amount of time you spend in the facility, the emphasis on things that we don't know. It's all based on what you put into it. And I guess the example I would give is this. Nick Foles didn't practice in 2017, okay, during the summer, really. He was hurt during the summer. During the spring, his wife was having a baby, so he really didn't have the what would be a traditional on the field offseason, and he's the Super Bowl MVP. I've seen other guys who light it up during training camp. They're out there in practice every day. They look great. They look fresh. They look like they've turned over a new leaf, and then they get to the season, and it's the same thing you've seen years before. So that's a way of saying for some guys it's an indication. For other guys, it's not. I can't tell you if what Nick Sirianni's doing is the right way, but certainly it's his way.
Definitely. I guess time will tell. Time will tell if we're doing it the right way. So you did write a great article talking about Saturday's practice, and just it was a rough go for the offense. And then Sunday, it looked like things kind of got a little bit better. Nick Sirianni himself said it was kind of an average practice to him. How did you feel, being able to compare both the days? Do you think that they made a step forward Sunday? We preached the 1%. Do you think that they at least were able to fulfill that 1% better?
I do. I think they were significantly more than 1% better Sunday than they were Saturday. Saturday was bad, right? And I know what Nick said. And look, Nick has all the data, and Nick has his way of evaluating it. And Nick knows more football than I do. So if he says it wasn't a bad offensive showing, then that's that's based on the way he sees it, and he's the one whose opinion matters. My view on it: the ball touched the ground an awful lot. If you have 5 consecutive plays and you don't move the ball once, that's problematic. Practice is a controlled setting, right? Like it should be advantageous for you. Now there are caveats you need to consider. First off, Jalen Hurts is not the type of, I think part of what makes Jalen Hurts potentially special, or certainly if you look at his skill set, it's what happens when the play breaks down. It's second reaction plays. It's scramble drill plays, things of that nature. And you don't necessarily simulate that in practice. That's number one. Number two, and this should be number one, I give the defense a lot of credit. Defense is making plays on the ball. And then, the third thing there is they don't have Devontae Smith out there. They didn't have both their starting guards. So that weakens your offense. However, if Jalen Hurts went 5 for 5 on that series, right, we'd be talking about how he was money that day. So the reality is this: you don't need to have splash plays all the time, but the ball can't be on the ground so much. And when we look at Jalen Hurts' 2020 season, I'm getting my years mixed up here. What was the biggest criticism, in my opinion, is the amount of incompletions there were. Right, he was a 53% passer. Okay, so in a practice, in a drill, when there's 4 consecutive incomplete passes, you can't just chalk that up. He needs to complete the ball. He needs to be more efficient. I've said this throughout the offseason, and I will say that after 2 weeks of practice. Jalen Hurts can do a lot of things really well, and he will do a lot of things really well, but he needs to be more efficient as a passer.
Definitely. Now, I want to switch it over a little bit to the defense, as you brought up. Steven Nelson, obviously a big signing for the Eagles. Everybody's very excited about him. People read tweets and, they jump off the ledge one way or the other. He's been beat. He's beat people. How have you seen him this camp so far? It's still very early, but, has he been out there making an impact on this defense?
Yeah, I do think Steven Nelson or Steve Nelson's played well. Now, there are plays he would want to have back, but look, you're going to get beat in one-on-ones, right? And definitely. If you're not, then your wide receivers need work. So I don't think he's been bad. I think he's been solid. And the other thing is his presence too. It doesn't just raise the level of talent in your secondary. I think it allows Zach McPherson to kind of develop at his own pace.
Exactly. Yeah.
Think about this: if they didn't sign Steve Nelson, it'd be Zach McPherson and Michael Jacquet with the ones, and that might be pushing it. So I think just the presence of Steven Nelson really helps this secondary as well.
Definitely. And then we also have another addition on the linebacking core with Eric Wilson. I know when Davion Taylor was in there, it was he was the mainstay, and it seemed like they were kind of rotating a lot of people on the side of him. How has that linebacking core looked so far in your eyes?
Yeah, so they've been mixing and matching, right? There's been different combinations, but I would be fairly confident that when they play on Sundays, Eric Eric Wilson's going to be your number one linebacker, and I like what I've seen with Wilson so far. He can move. He had a nice interception Saturday. Now, a big question with Eric Wilson is going to be his tackling, and they haven't tackled yet. So it's hard for me to say, is he a good enough tackler when they're not tackling to the ground? With that said, based on what we've seen from practice, I like what I've seen from Eric Wilson.
Definitely. And then I got two more questions for you, and we'll get you out of here. I want to ask about this offensive line. The Jordan Mailata, Andre Dillard. I've heard that both of them are doing well. Obviously, Dillard, we hear a lot about him getting beat. But what's your opinion on that? Is Jordan Mailata just the easy pick for that position, or do you think there's a real competition still brewing?
Well, if you go based on what you see on the field, right? If you disregard who was the first-round pick, if you disregard the potential that a player might have, if you just look at what you see on the field, Jordan Mailata has been the better player. I'm not an offensive line expert. Jeff Stoutland might look at it differently. Nick Sirianni might look at it differently. I would be surprised if they do look at it differently, right? Because I just think through what's been 10 practices so far, I think Jordan Mailata has been the better player. However, they haven't played in preseason games yet, and I think preseason games will tell you a lot as well. So curious to see Thursday night, but if they were to play a game, if this was week 1 and they were playing the Atlanta Falcons this weekend, I would say Jordan Mailata would be your starting left tackle.
Okay. And then the last question I want to ask you is actually about preseason. I know a lot of teams, like to sit their starters and everything. I just kind of want to know, as far as the Eagles, do we have that luxury? Do you think, guys like Jalen Hurts and Mailata and our starters, or who we perceive to be our starters, will see extended time in these preseason games?
I don't know the answer to that. I asked Nick Sirianni how he'll approach the preseason. He gave a general answer about how he's kind of mapped it out, but it's a player-by-player basis. I'm hoping to learn more when we talk to Nick tomorrow. I don't know the answer, but I would like to see them play more, right? I would like to see them more in this offense. The NFL, the way it's going, and especially with joint practices, is they would rather kind of get the first-team guys reps in those settings. But I think there's a great benefit to playing in the preseason. So I would like to see them out there. That said, I know an organizational philosophy is often just get them to week 1 healthy. And frankly, that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, definitely. Very true. Very true. Well, hey, I appreciate you so much, Zach. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, a busy week ahead of you. I'm going to have all the links to The Athletic and all your articles down below, man. But again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all your work, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Have a great one, man. And thank you to everybody that tuned in. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. Peace.
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Fly Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a bird game nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast.